Hey there, YouTube. Ghost Jake here with you tonight. You guys get a bonus video tonight because I wasn't tired at all and I decided to watch the new episode of Once Upon a Time on Hulu. So I'm going to give you guys a review of Once Upon a Time season 7, and I hope that you guys will enjoy the review. So, okay, let's get started in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Now, Once Upon a Time season 7 takes place, and it takes place when it takes place in Storybrooke to the very beginning. Should I say the very beginning takes place in Storybrooke when after high school Henry, still played by when that Henry was, I believe, was still played by Jared S. Gilmore, I think is his name. Let me take a look at the. It's not on the back of the DVD. The cast. Anyway, well, where he wants to go, well, he succeeded in giving everyone their happy endings. From the season 6 conclusion, and he is going to then he wants to create his own story, go out on his own. So he takes a magic bean and he goes into a new realm. And he goes into a new realm for new possibilities. Anyway, then we get the scene where he is in his apartment in Seattle, Washington, and there's a knock on his door, similar to how back in season 1 when he was a little kid knocking on Emma's door to go get her to take her to Storybrooke. This girl named Lucy was knocking on his door in his apartment to Seattle to take him to the new cursed land called Hyperion Heights. And Henry's pretty much in denial, saying, how he doesn't have a daughter and whatnot, doesn't have a daughter. And then it shows daughter, and then Lucy ends up leaving because Henry's actually a writer in his cursed life, from what I could take from just watching the first episode. And then she leaves, and then Lucy leaves and goes. And apparently Henry's having some trouble writing his new book because the book he written is actually called Once Upon a Time, and it's about the other stories. And he's convinced that all the stories he's written is fiction. So not real. So then we get to see a little bit of the new Enchanted Land, where get to see a little bit of the new Enchanted Land where he Well, it shows him riding uh, on his motorcycle, and he kind of hits Cinderella's carriage, and kind of hits Cinderella's carriage, and that sends her flying. And because apparently in this new land, Cinderella has to go to this ball to meet, someone. Like apparently a prince, and so apparently a prince, because Henry thinks like she's going there to fall in love, but she isn't. But we'll get to that a little bit later. And then we see Henry teaching Cinderella how to ride the motorcycle. And then Henry's like, okay, I'll take you there. And after he taught her how to ride, and Cinderella just punches Henry in the face. I thought that was kind of pretty funny. And these are, in case you haven't seen or read anything about Once Upon a Time yet, these are brand new characters for the most part. The adult Henry's played by Andrew J. West. That much I know for sure, and I don't know who the new actress who's playing Cinderella is yet. Anyway, punches him and goes to and takes the motorcycle off to the ball, and then Henry has to follow her. Eventually, follow her eventually to go get his motorcycle back, because he has a portal opening at midnight that he has to go get. That he has to get to. Then we go back to Seattle, Washington. A lot of places take place in Seattle. The new season of Once Upon a Time is in Seattle. I just noticed that a lot of places take in Seattle in TV shows this season. It seems like the new season of Once Upon a Time and the new Exorcist season takes place in Seattle also. So kind of interesting ties there. If you're a fan of both shows, that is, like I am. And then we go back to Seattle, and then Henry's getting ready to write on his computer, and and Lucy, before she left, snagged his computer, and she left him a note saying, "If you want your computer back, go meet me in Hyperion Heights." At Hyperion Heights at a bar called Ronnie's. So Henry pretty much takes his car to Hyperion Heights, and takes his car to Hyperion Heights, and goes to Ronnie's bar. And then when he goes in, he says, "Excuse me, this is Ronnie's?" And then the person serving the bar is Regina, but in this new cursed land, her name's not Regina at all. Her name is Ronnie, for teaching the bar, and her look is pretty different too. She's not that. She doesn't have that mayor look she had in the seasons 1 through 6. She's more wearing casual clothes, like jeans and a shirt. Typical what you let a bar owner would wear. And then, okay, now we go back. Now we're going back to this new enchanted land. So Henry, he eventually finds he eventually finds. He eventually goes to the ball to find Cinderella, and he goes to the bar to find Cinderella, and he goes to the bar to find Cinderella, and then he gets this drink. But before, I think before he drinks the drink, he drinks the drink first. It's like champagne, or champagne or some kind of white wine. It looks like champagne to me, though, honestly. And then he finds Cinderella and he starts dancing with her. And then he discovers that Cinderella wasn't going to like meet and try to marry the prince. She was actually going to assassinate the prince. And then he finds out that that the drink has been dosed. The drink's been drugged, and then the drink's been drugged, and then he goes to then he wakes up in this like underground cave or whatever it is, and the person like kind of interrogating him is Alice from like Alice in Wonderland, and she pretty much tells him like, like his grandfather Rumple kind of wants him to come back because this isn't his story and he shouldn't pretty much mess with other people's stuff, pretty much. It doesn't revolve around him, but he kind of ignores that warning and goes back to the ball anyway to try to save Cinderella because he doesn't want to abandon someone who will probably make a great mistake. Now we go back to Hyperion Heights and go back to Ronnie's bar. We see I just watched the damn episode and I forgot her name. The actress who plays Cinderella show up to Ronnie's bar. And bring Henry's computer back because apparently Lucy ran away like in the middle of the night, and then her parents discovered that in the morning. But apparently she didn't hide the computer very well or something. Don't know why. Anyway, then then they start talking. And then start talking, and then like Henry's like wanting to go. He doesn't have like all of his memories, so he's wanting to go back to his house or his apartment, not in Hyperion Heights, back in Seattle, right? And then so back to Seattle. As Henry is leaving the bar, I forgot really fast. Before they leave the bar, Cinderella's stepmother comes in. I forgot. Her stepmother comes into Ronnie's bar, to ask about where her grandmother is, or not her grandmother. I almost just made a stupid mistake. Her grandchild is, and they're trying to figure that out. And then when Henry gets ready to leave the bar. Guess what? His car has been stolen. And it turns out his car has been stolen. So what he does, he talks to Lucy. He finds Lucy like in this like garden that used to be a garden or whatever. I think it used to be a garden. Like this, what used to be this garden. And then we see, and then Henry, she says no, she didn't have anything to do with stealing the car because she was trying to get Henry to stay. And then he goes to the police station to report that his car's been stolen. And the cop that initially was dealing with him was kind of, an asshole, to say the least. And then, guess who shows up to help him out? Captain Hook shows up, and except his name's not Killian or anything, his name is Rogers, and that's probably like a pun off of his boat from the previous seasons, the Jolly Rogers, what I would guess. And they end up trying to find his car in the rear ward. And guess what? They're not really having very much luck. Hardly at all, because his car seems to be nowhere. And then, oh yeah, I forgot one little detail. We did see right before Henry entered the bar, we saw Alice in Wonderland's actual character in the real world. And then she goes to this, now back to kind of the present, she goes to this, I don't know where she is, like this, some kind of like, some sort of like building facility, and she knocks on the door and they let her in. And he sees I don't know what his name is yet, but unless I just missed it during the episode when I watched it on Hulu because I wasn't tired. And then they knock on the door, and then she lets him know that someone new came in town, and the person that looks up is actually Rumpelstiltskin, played by Robert Carlyle. Anyway, even I don't have to say the actor's name because you probably all know who plays Rumpelstiltskin by now if you watch any of the previous seasons of Once Upon a Time. Anyway, now back to the fairy tale land. Like after Henry escaped After Henry escaped Alice, as he goes back to the ball, and he finds Cinderella right before she's about to kill the prince, even though she couldn't do it. She couldn't go through with it. And then it turns out Cinderella's like stepmother killed the prince right in front of her because like apparently the prince like rejected one of her stepdaughters for some weird reason. And then she tries to blame it on Cinderella. And then Henry and Cinderella start fighting the guards. Not the best thing to do when you just go to a new place, pretty much, to get on the wanted list, per se. But, what can I say? Once Upon a Time wouldn't really be a show if it didn't have any sort of excitement to it or anything like that. But it's still a very good show. And then back to the real world. No, wait, I forgot one thing. As the fighting continues, Henry tells Cinderella to take his motorcycle and go to where they first met because there is a portal that is going to be opening really soon. That goes back to probably Storybrooke, is what would my guess be. Back in, would probably be Storybrooke, but I'm not entirely sure. But back then when he was in the Enchanted Land, and he decides to skip the portal because he finds Cinderella's slipper, leaving him a clue that something happened to her. And guess what? So he just has to go try to save her instead of minding his own damn business and going back home. But if he did that, guess what? The season would only be one episode and there wouldn't be a storyline. So, for the rest of the season, which is probably going to be like 22, 23 episodes, like the other seasons are. Anyway, then we see Henry back in Hyperion Heights and Cinderella's stepmother was like, "Oh, having car trouble," because I think they jacked the car in order to try to trap Henry into helping them find her grandchild and her stepdaughter. And it pretty much works. Henry pretty much sells them right out because in a previous conversation at Ronnie's bar, Cinderella mentioned there was a house like on the beach that she wanted to live in, and when they took off, that's where they wanted to go. And that's where they were heading. And like Lucy is convinced like they can't go there because, the curse won't let him go there. Which is part true. And then we see Cinderella's stepmother show up. No, stepsister show up, and Lucy gets in the car, and she hands the book Once Upon a Time to Captain Hook's character, Rogers, and he starts flipping through the book, starts reading a little bit. And then, guess what? We see Cinderella with Henry and back in the real in the real world. And then they go to saying, I was like, you pretty much got what you wanted. Your car's here. You can pretty much just go. And Henry goes that. Oh, I forgot to mention Lucy. Henry said something when he was talking to Lucy previously. He said that he had a family, and his family died in like a car accident or a fire. And what's really interesting that happened is that the like on his way out, a flower started growing in that little flower garden. And then Ronnie doesn't sell the bar to the evil stepmother. She fights for it. And then Rogers becomes a detective. And his new partner is Rumpelstiltskin, so that's going to be interesting. And then we have Henry back in Seattle. And then Henry back in Seattle is going to this like imaginary cemetery to visit his family, and the cemetery doesn't exist. I think he's starting to believe a little bit because he's seeing through the walls of illusion. And then he goes back home with his computer, and then he actually writes Once Upon a Time on his computer, and that's what the episode ends. That's how the episode ends. So what do I think of Season 7, Episode 1 of Once Upon a Time? For the most part, I thought it was a pretty solid episode. But I think it's going to go back to the season one route where they have to deal with the curse the entire season. That season one went through a curse the entire season. I think season 7 is going to go similar to that. Well, this is Ghost Jake signing off. I hope you enjoyed your bonus video. See you next week, probably. Bye.